Well, hey everybody, and just wanted to say thank you for tuning into our videos the past month. This is our second one with Justin back in the United States. Having tonight. We had a little bit of problem with the audio last week because I've been messing around with the cameras and trying to figure out how all this works. It's a learning experience for me. So thanks for being patient with us. Justin, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Jeremy. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So you mentioned it's been cold in New England over the
Yeah, when we
last.
first got here, it was pretty chilly. It got down to the low 40s at night. And then, literally out of nowhere last week, or probably about 3 or 4 days ago, was about 60 or 70 at night at the coolest and 80 or 90 during the day, which is a pretty big swing in temperature. It's kind of interesting.
It's awesome. So sorry, I was just realizing that I need to minimize my Facebook because it's doing the Facebook. So,
There we
so,
go.
anyways, so we were on to talk about, and I have quite a few examples off this, how to transmute, I guess, our emotions as we're going through different things in our life.
Yeah, well, I mean, transmuting your emotions will definitely happen, but
Mm,
it's not really the focus, I would say, where you want to put your attention.
mm,
Because your emotions come from your choices about what you're observing. So, for
mm,
example, I'm going to use a permaculture example. There's this thing in permaculture. It's called humanure, and basically what it is you use human excrement or shit as your fertilizer, so if you have no concept of no understanding of how the fertilizer process works, about how genetic entrainment works, how you the genetic material from your body is actually a way to help grow seeds and vitality better and just provide better food, this is going to seem really disgusting for you. And then when you have this choice of disgust, or where you say, no, I don't want to experience that, or no, I don't think that's right, what is the emotions that you're going to get?
gross. The eyebrow
Exactly.
raising that I just had.
Exactly. So the point is not to focus on the emotion, in which case people's normal reaction when they only focus on the emotion is, well, I have to get away from the thing that triggers this emotion, you know? Instead, what you want to try to do, or in conjunction with, is you want to try to look at what's happening inside of you, observe the reactions, observe the dynamic. Why is this choice to view human manure as bad, for example?
Mhm.
And then when you actually study and gain research and knowledge and understanding through that process, you'll actually start to view things differently. One thing I talked about a lot in my blog recently is that we've kind of been programmed on Earth to think of our bodies as disgusting meat bags that make all these funky smells. And then we try to wash these smells and these natural hormones and excretions off of ourselves, which causes health problems, which then we need to go to the doctors for.
Right.
And then, mind you, the whole time we're having this kind of low level trauma because anytime we smell our own BO or we smell some bad breath, we have this huge rejection of self experience. So, really, at like a spiritual level, this whole concept idea of disgust is like a complete separation mindset. So anyway, just using this as an example, what you can do is try to gain knowledge of the thing objectively. What is
Mhm.
the real scientific basis, not your subjective choices? And in the process, you'll transmute the experience, and then you'll actually have a better emotional experience.
Well, you'll bring an awareness, and then just awareness transmutes it of an
Right.
alternative idea. It's it's interesting. We should talk about that because, of course, most people expect doesn't even mean bad bo or anything that they deem bad. They want to move away from, and
Right.
it's like I'm interviewing a friend of mine on Saturday. She originally one of her books is called Dealing with Difficult People, and uh, and how she found peace in her life is through taking care of an Alzheimer's patient, mean and cruel and some days very nasty. And so dealing with difficult people is how she found her awakening sense, and because she stopped judging it and she stopped looking at
Right.
herself through the experience and many difficult people that she dealt with throughout her life. She found peace, and then I think it really comes down to like the name that's in your blog, the name of your blog, Stillness in the Storm. If you can be the observer of that as opposed to the reactive participant, if you're more proactive, I
Right,
guess.
exactly. I mean, in a way, you can't help but be part of the process. So even if you're experiencing, to use your friend's example, the old crabby man, you
Mm,
know, your choice to continue to maintain these judgments about him because it's an
mm,
active process, you're going to have this negative emotional experience. And
right.
and if you find a way to, I like to use the objective scientific approach because instead of just trying to swap one belief system with another that may not actually represent reality, when you in my experience, when you actually gain knowledge of reality itself, it usually takes almost any negative experience and transmutes it. And eventually, I would say almost absolutely, although I really try to hesitate not using that word, in
Mm,
every experience, if you gain enough knowledge, eventually it's going to become transmuted and you're going to move past any victim type of limitation mindset.
yeah. It's kind of like when I learned, I was trying to learn how to love more, I guess, is the base of it. And I that most people consider that emotion. And emotion, I consider love the balance between the dualities, I guess, the polarity. Flow, I guess, would be the word to call it. Especially when you're thinking about like an agape love, unconditional love and stuff. So,
Right.
um, and in that sense, that's not an emotion, that's a frequency. And so, which brings me to the point when I realized that love actually is a frequency. And if you take a frequency and put that love frequency, you and I have seen this before, and it goes across the DNA strand. We know that it hits every part of that DNA strand. And I thought to myself, and then when I learned that the body, the brain, when I give somebody a hug, it doesn't know, it doesn't really, it physically itself doesn't know that I'm hugging somebody else. It just knows that it's experiencing the highest form of understanding and agape love. I'm embracing something, I'm feeling something, I'm experiencing something. You know what I mean? It doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't understand anything else other than that. Um, and so when I learned that, I was like, well, wait a second. So then, why the, what's my issue here? Why am I so upset? If this makes the body feel good, not in that reactive toward the sense, if it's just in this experience, then what the hell am I always upset for? You know what I
Right.
mean? And then I realized that it took me a while after that to realize that, however, when I do get upset, don't try to brush that under the rug. You know, look at that too. You know, what's that experience all about? You know,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you need to be aware of these internal processes. And that's kind of one of the techniques I wanted to talk about is that, when you feel yourself having a reaction, I would say the first step is to kind of pull yourself away from the momentum of it
mm-hmm.
in the sense that you're more in observation. It doesn't mean that you're trying to, reach the Zen Buddhist place immediately from having a reaction about something.
Yeah,
Really, you're just trying to find that space of observation so you can also have the reaction, but observe what's happening at the same time. And one way I do that is sometimes I'll write in a journal. So I'll just kind of write to myself all of the things that I'm upset about. And then obviously in the process of writing, I get to observe what I'm writing, or I'll go for a walk and, kind of think to myself or even talk to myself, whatever the technique is you need to use. It doesn't really matter. But in that process of doing it, even if you're just starting, um, you're usually going to start to become aware of perspectives that you didn't know were there.
mm-hmm.
And then if you kind of add into it all the spiritual teachings about, oneness and love, unconditional love, like you were saying, and growth in a real spiritual sense, there's nothing in the universe that's wasted. You may think that the guy who cut you off, how is that helping me in my spiritual growth? What the heck? He's just a jerk. Um, but if you really try to build this perspective of, well, how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? And what reactions am I having as a result of this trigger? Then you're really going to start to have a process of empowerment versus feeling like a victim of circumstance. And that's really, I think, the key to transmutation in that sense.
Yeah. You know, I think that people can actually use their jobs as a great place to do this at. For those either out there, or your families, or heck, Facebook. I mean, once you start posting things on Facebook, somebody's going to have an opinion. So,
Hmm.
you know, and so for an example, my one of my first jobs I started practicing this at was dealing with insurance salespeople all day long. They were my customers. And they would scream at me and yell at me and talk down to me, and because they made $1 million a year, they felt that everybody else who made less than that was less than them. You know what I mean? That's how
Right.
they would talk to you, and they would actually express that to you. So I thought to myself, I could choose. I can make a choice. It's like you said, your emotions are choices. Those are how you choose to respond, or where you're going to be at that. And so I thought to myself, so I could play a story here. I could play the victim, which is what we really wanted to talk about here. Techniques to get out of our victimhood, or I could choose to not be the victim. And be in that unconditional love space, love that person for who they are, love myself, not let them diminish who I am, and that kind of stuff. And so I would practice breathing while they were on the phone, and as my energy started, my body started to swell up, and that anxiety started to swell up. I would just talk to myself inside and say, that's not about you. It has nothing to do with you. What they're saying to you, it is not really directed at you. It feels like it, but it's not. And then I would literally calm myself down and practice. And then one time I actually did get very condescending with a guy back. I because my ego can be a mother effer, I guess the way to put it. It can be a big itself. And so then when I went home and thought about it, I thought, wow, that really there was no need for having a pissing contest between the two. So I actually called him up the next day and apologized to him. And some people would say, well, why did you do that? Because did he act smug? And I'm like, yeah, he did. Yes, he did. He said, he thought, well, thank you. And, you shouldn't have talked to me like that, all that kind of stuff. And what that was is a very humbling experience for me, but it was a way for me to practice. This is a technique to practice.
Right.
What it said to me is I'm holding myself accountable for where I was at. This is not about, because that's about me. And I decide in that moment, I made a choice, you said, to engage into this pissing contest between the two of us. And where neither one of us walked away with a good feeling. Neither
Right.
one of us walked away with a win-win situation. Neither one of us walked away any more spiritual. And in the end, he hung up the phone angry. He didn't get what he needed. I hung up the phone. I just happened to get caught on recording. And about 2 weeks later, after I called and apologized to him, I had to go and listen to that conversation all over again.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes. And so it's one of those things that if you can use your work as practice, you can use Facebook as practice, and when you want to, before you respond on the computer with your opinion, stop, think, how do I want to respond to this? And trust me, sometimes I'm still get caught up in the moment, and a lot of
Oh,
times I
totally.
mess a lot of times I message Justin and I say, what the heck's going on with this person? And what's that all about? And then I'll make a joke. And incidentally, humor can be a form of a reaction as well. So,
Oh, sure.
so
Well, yeah, I mean, oddly enough, I just put out this post today about how to be your own savior, and it was all about basically what we're talking about using your own experiences as learning tools, and really going within and kind of observing your reactions to things, and allowing those reactions to happen so you can learn about yourself, find where there's incomplete knowledge, and then gain that knowledge through intuition and research and things like this. And I had somebody comment who, they had lost their job, and they kind of took what I was saying as a type of like a pacifist modality that all we have to do is just sit on our couch and do nothing and worrying about raising our vibration, which is not what I was saying at all in the post. But I could, like you said, you could I could tell that he wasn't really speaking to me as a direct attack on what I was saying in the words and the ideas, but his misinterpretation in and of itself was a reaction for what was happening inside of him. And when that energy was really intense, he basically told me to F off at the end of his comment. And my initial reaction was like, "Well, who's this guy? He didn't read my post, and here, I'm going to tell him all the times, points where he was wrong." And like you said, I had to kind of step back and take a deep breath. Breathing is something that's I do a lot. I'll just feel myself after another. I'm a pretty busy guy, so if I don't make the time to be still, I'll just it's like a steamroller, a running train, like going way too fast on the tracks, and I'll just kind of take a breath, take two or three deep breaths in, and exhale completely out. And once you do that, you kind of have a little bit more of a level ground to work with. And that's kind of what one of these things that we're talking about is when we talk about being a victim, it's being a victim of your own emotional reactions. Because if I wasn't careful, I could have totally fed into this fighting, like you were saying, kind of having a pissing contest with this guy, who was just reacting at an emotional level to everything that he was going on in his life. Most likely, I mean, he needed a vent for his frustration, and he decided to use this blog post as a comment to do that. So me feeding into that surface level interaction really going to help him, and it's certainly not going to help me because I'm going to have this huge belief system structure that's built on, well, he's wrong and I'm right, and all this thing. So really, I mean, to address what you said about the job, I mean, I worked at a call center for 2.5 years and dealing with various people, and one of the things that allowed me to work the job, because I was at a point in my life where I really did not want to work the job at all, but I said, listen, if I'm be in this space, I'm going to have to do this. I need to find a way to have this be not only rewarding financially, but spiritually rewarding, because I'm at this place in my life where I need spiritual growth and spiritual substance. And I tried to find any way possible. I would always say to myself, how can I learn from this experience? What am I trying to be? What is trying to be taught to me right now? And with that perspective, I could take an angry caller who didn't know what they were talking about with their computer and make it into like a spiritual lesson.
Mhm.
So, I think in that sense, if you can hold that perspective and try not to slip into this victim mindset of he's wrong and this happened to me and there's nothing I can do, then you really feel more empowered and you'll be able to start to transmute some of these states that you're in, especially and again through knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about because I've worked in call centers, good Lord, for since 1996.
Wow.
So for
Yeah.
almost 20 years. I mean, give or take a few, because I've worked in other things, but I've been a supervisor, a manager, a trainer, an employee on the phone, the leads, whatever you want to call HR. I've done everything under the sun within a call center. And I was just thinking back to one of my first ones where I was a team lead, and one of my friends on Facebook and I were talking the other day, and I was thinking about it was I handled this um, discount club credit card. I'm not going to name the name because it's not important. But anyways, they would call in and they would scream at us and all that other kind of stuff. And I remember saying to one of the store managers, "What part of late charge did you not understand?" And um, I remember one of the supervisors looked up cross and said, "I cannot believe you just said that," because I was actually a team lead, but I was in quality assurance at the time. And they were making fun of me. They were like, "Mr. Quality," all that kind of stuff. And then I thought to myself, at that time I was like 23 years old or something like that. And some of this is age, you just grow up. But I would never say that to somebody now. There
Right.
might be a part of me for a millisecond thinking it that I would even hold myself accountable in my own thoughts and say, no, 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 just because it's not even worth it. There's an old saying that I love to say now, not my circus, not my monkey. And it
Yes.
really comes down to the fact that we try to get engaged and ask people, we get frustrated with people because we take a victimhood sense. Why is this person not getting this? Oh my God, why do I have to explain this over and over and over again? And it's it really kind of brings down your energy. And so one of the reasons why you want to not be in that victimhood sense. Well, let me take that back. Let's say this: we're all living in a story. We can call it a
Right.
movie or whatever you want to call it. I choose to call it a story. So each one of you is living in a story right now. There's never a time when you're not. Now, with that being said, you can call it whatever you want to. You can come up with any cute name you want for it. However, now you get to choose what type of story you want to play in. You can choose to live in a story of victimhood or non-victimhood. So fear or love, whatever you want to refer to it as. And so it's really that simple. And so now the process to flip from victimhood to love takes some work. And it really
Yes.
takes work because it's what's going on inside of you. Because as I posted earlier, it's an inside job. So the inside job is where you have to go into all those thoughts and you have to pay attention. I was just going into something recently because I started to go into a little bit of a victim mindset. Why am I not in a relationship? I've been single for 9 years now. I seem to attract people that I like, and then we end up becoming friends, and then they end up going off and having relationships with other people and all that kind of stuff. And it's happened more than once. And then I really had to get honest with myself. I push people away in that sense. And why? Because as a victimhood, there's still a hurt person in here that was hurt from the last relationship, and then that manifests into, oh, I'm not ready for it because I don't have this and I don't have that. All the excuses, because excuses are manifestations of fear. And so you have to really get honest with yourself because and so then what those thoughts, those frequencies are saying to the universe, no, 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 I'm not ready, not ready, push, 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 push. So then it's like you got one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake.
Right.
There's some thoughts going here, and that's what are called cross purposes. And I really like to start teaching more about cross purposing because we all have this going on over and over and over and over again. And so it's kind of like, hey Justin, very nice to see you, and da 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 da. But there might be somewhere in my mind going, oh, I'm just not in the mood for this today.
Right.
That's called a cross purpose. And incidentally, it causes physical problems within you. It becomes like a toxin inside of you. It's like an umbilical. It's like an emotional cord that gets twisted in your vibration. So it's the techniques that you do to go into that is now you become mindful of your thoughts, and that's why the jobs, Facebook, are a great way to practice because you can see your internal reactions that are happening on with inside of you.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great perspective. I really like that term cross purpose. I refer to it as cognitive dissonance or, saying you want to do one thing, but with the other hand, you're sabotaging the thing that you want to do for yourself.
Right.
And we kind of live in a pleasantry society where you say, "Hey, how's it going?" And then, if anybody really answered that question honestly, nobody would really want to have receive that much answer because most of us are going through so much in our lives. So what we end up doing all the time is putting ourselves in these situations that we don't really want to do, but we feel like we have to do because we need social acceptance or we have to be nice to the boss or he's our friend for many years so we have to call him once a month or whatever the thing is that you deep down inside don't want to necessarily do but you do anyway. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said, it creates that dissonance and it's really like a form of soft uh, trauma because you're doing something you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you do something you don't want to do at a fundamental level, you're
Right.
going to get those negative emotions. And then those negative emotions, it's going to literally, it's like putting your hand on a hot stove. I
Yeah.
mean, it's intense and that causes all sorts of issues. So, by to kind of bring it into the, well, what can we do with this information? Simply by changing your perspective and the choice on the perspective you have, you can really do a lot of almost instantaneous transmutation. You know, um, in several personal relationships I have, I've been, trying to talk to people about various things, and there's a lot of times I find, like you've been saying, wow, I've been saying the same thing in the same different way for years now, and it's still not sinking in. It's almost like, is it me? Am I not saying it right? Are they just not willing to hear it? And it's very easy for me to kind of want to slip into this, well, I'm just wasting my time kind of perspective.
Mhm.
But at a certain sense, if you're in the moment, if you're having that experience, then you must have chose it at some, higher realm level. And in which case, we go back to the, well, what can I learn from this? How
Yeah.
can I teach myself from this? And once you kind of, I've been using recently forgiveness to forgive myself for even having the reaction in the first place, and really, like, don't just say the words and then kind of move it along. Really try to open yourself up to the idea that what you're doing or what you're going through has some kind of meaning, kind of like a mystery that you need to solve. And when you do, when you just crack your mind open just a little bit, all of a sudden it won't feel so overwhelming and like you're drowning. It'll actually kind of open your curiosity and your inquisitiveness and your imagination
Yeah.
to try to figure out, what's really happening. So, and then, the other thing too is be honest with yourself. And then once you're honest with yourself, find a way to be compassionately honest with other people. Don't put your foot in your mouth and say that you want to do something when you don't really want to do it, and then you create all of this, like you were saying, the cross-purposing business as a result for yourself. So
Mhm.
it's a simple thing to acknowledge intellectually, but it'll be one of the most challenging things probably of your life, because once you really start to gain awareness of how much discontinuity is in your personality and in your belief system, it's going to be a tremendous act of will to constantly try to maintain and get back into alignment and get back with flow, because you're always going to want to be tempted by the past choices of inertia that you've had.
I want to throw this out there as well. There's a few things I say, like if I can't think of anything to process through, like if I feel like I'm sure you felt this before, there's anxiety and you can't even figure out what it is. It's just like, all that stuff. Here's something I do. Like this morning, I woke up and I always know when I have anxiety when I have something, my throat's kind of constricted. So this morning, I just sat in myself and laid in bed before I got up, and I just said the Ho'oponopono prayer. And I said, and I say it in English, but I say, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And that's order, but it's basically, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Right.
And I just say that over and over and over again in my mind. And what happens is the anxiety starts to subside. What am I doing? I'm asking for forgiveness, so I'm letting go. I'm loving myself. I'm saying I love you. I'm thanking myself. But and it just goes on and on. I also do this. I always, if something's going on and my mind is racing, I'll say, "Peace, be still," and then I'll say, "For I know that I'm God. My ship sails on smooth water." And for those of you that feel uncomfortable with saying that I'm God, you just say, "Peace, be still. My ship sails on smooth water." Or one of my friends, Reka, she used to say, "Peace on my mind, peace on my body, peace on my soul, peace on my mind, peace on my body, peace on my soul." And she would say that over and over and over and over and over again. Or she'd say, "I trust." She was very much a believer in God. She was raised a Christian, and this is her belief system. So what she would say is, "I trust in you, God. I trust in you, God. I trust in you, God." For the way Justin and I believe, it's the same as saying, "I trust in you as an individual. I trust in you, this person, this child." And We get really hung up on words, and we don't need to. It's about the essence of what we're experiencing. Um, Justin's aura just got really big and with blue in it,
I
and
know when you said that, you're striking a chord for me right now, Jeremy. So.
so it's um, I think there's a lot to think about with this, and there's a lot happening with all of us. And I know everybody needs to hear this, even for me and Justin. Wow, it's blue. Good Lord. And so there's just, as you guys are going through the days and going through the ascension process, just, really do your practice.
Yeah, definitely. I would suggest. I just thought of this. Something that helps me is making a list, because it helps make it conscious. So you got to start. There is a process. There is a, I want to say recipe, but I'm not saying recipe in the sense that it's foolproof. You have to be an active participant. Like Jeremy was just saying, Some people use the term God, some people use peace, some people use forgiveness. The word itself doesn't really matter. That's not the magic of the recipe. The magic of the recipe is what it means to you, and whatever process that you need to go through to open yourself up to what is happening. Whatever words, whatever you want to do, a meditation, you want to do a rain dance, if it's tapping, if it's breathing exercises, whatever it is required for you to get into that consciousness space of openness and love and being willing to imagine new possibilities of what wasn't happening before is really essential. So we're going to take that idea of openness and we're going to marry it with awareness. So in order to start the process of transmutation and really empowering yourself, you need to gain awareness of what's limiting you and what may be hidden below the waters. So if when you can, keep a little pen and paper or maybe use a notepad on your phone or whatever it takes and try to make a list of at least one or two items on a daily basis, something that triggered you. And then if you can find the time, whether it's driving to work in the car, take that list and look at it and say, well, yesterday my husband he left the plates on the table, and boy, that really ticks me off. And then just go through this mental exercise of building awareness. Allow yourself to react. God, he's so messy. He's such a jerk. He doesn't value my time. My time's important. Let it all just come out. Like, just don't hold back. And then once you've gone through that process, you can be aware of all these reactions you have. Then you can start to go in and build the knowledge and gain the awareness and start the whole transmutation of, well, what can I learn from this experience? How can compassion and understanding for others help me? And ultimately, if you need to do the external research, which I think an internal intuition married with external research is really essential to the process, reach out for others. I mean, you're not alone. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of self-help, spirit, whatever name you want to describe to them, that have a lot of powerful techniques and belief systems, I'm going to say in that in quotation marks, that can help you transcend experience. One belief system I use is that everything has meaning and everything has purpose. And there's nothing really random or deterministic in the universe. And with that general faith or conclusion belief, it allows me to kind of transcend the victim mindsets that I can slip into. And believe me, they constantly coming up for me to look at and transcend. I'm no guru by any means.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
And no, it was a great show.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. We'll be on next week, and I'll be posting this